Hello and welcome to Coffee Lovers TV. Joseph here, and I am with Eddie
Yeah.
of Seattle Coffee Scene podcast. Thanks for joining me, Eddie.
Thank you for having me. I've been enjoying your videos. It's nice to be here.
Fantastic. You just went on a trip to Lithuania, was it?
That's right. The Baltics, and had a great trip, and brought some coffee for you to share, or to share with you. Actually, for those of you who don't know where the Baltics are, they kind of get confused with the Balkans. But like the Baltics are in the northern part of Europe, just south of Sweden and south of Finland, and that whole area of Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia are all part of the Baltics. And I've been going there for a few years now, and but I did visit two countries, Lithuania and Latvia, and brought some coffee for you.
Fantastic. We'll get into the coffee in a moment. Can you tell me what your experience was like there?
Yeah, so if I can step back a little bit, and I've been going to the Baltic area. I used to live in Sweden in a past life, and which is not too far, and I would take the ferry across, and so I had the opportunity to visit the Baltics, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, and parts of Poland and Finland a while ago, and to see the transition of what life was like then. These states were former Russian republics, republics of the USSR, former Soviet, satellite states, so to see the transition of culture and retail and life and everything that comes along with westernization, if you will, has been really interesting. And so I've been able to, like, today, now, even this trip there's like plenty of more options to get great coffee. Mm-hmm. So I was actually expecting to go to several. I actually went to several plus many more coffee places, and it's been great.
Do you remember from your past experience what the coffee was like back then?
So I remember specifically in Poland, which maybe is not technically Baltic, but it's in the region. It's behind the former Soviet, behind the Iron Curtain, if you will. And I remember that instant coffee was the thing. Instant coffee was huge in the whole area, actually, especially in the Soviet bloc. And so one of the people who I visited and have spoken to over the past couple of years, he is an owner of Huracán Coffee in Lithuania. He since did a name change and a branding change, but he used to be what's called fresh coffee. Kava Svetia is what he would call, that's the actual name of his former company. And I think in the brand here you can see it might still be on here. Is that? Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's Svetia Kava. I'm sorry, I got that wrong. Svetia Kava. So it means fresh coffee. And when he started back then, there you go. Yeah. So when he started back then, the idea he had a tough job ahead of him. He had to convince consumers who had lived for two generations behind the Soviet Iron Curtain, if you will. He had to convince a new generation of consumers that the simple idea of having fresh coffee. Mm-hmm. And so his company was called Fresh Coffee, which, by the way, he had a hard time convincing people, like, no, this is really fresh coffee, and they wouldn't buy it. They would be maybe suspicious of it, and so there was basically coffee was never fresh, especially in the Soviet Union. It was always packaged coffee, mostly from India. So it was Indian coffee that was generally always instant. And so you have a culture that was raised on instant coffee, now really full force going into fresh and locally roasted coffee, which is interesting.
Instant coffee is that's such a boggling jump, because not only are they consuming coffee which has been brewed, and I don't know what the process they used for instant, but one of the popular processes, you essentially brew the coffee and then dehydrate it.
Yeah.
Or just evaporate all the water from it, and then you're left with the essentially brewed coffee crystals. You add water back to it, and boom, you have coffee. But so not only going from essentially coffee that has already been brewed, but it was probably like low quality,
Very low quality.
had been like not handled properly at all. I'm just assuming.
Yeah, what's the grade for instant coffee? It's like grade 5, or it's usually 4 or 5. Like
I don't know.
so that was one aspect of the coffee scene that had to be developed. The second aspect, which there might be some disagreements here or there, but one bigger coffee chain which is growing quite rapidly in the region, and unfortunately I don't have some coffee from them, but they're Coffee Inn, now called Caffeine Roasters. Actually, they just have, I think they have a foothold in the United States. They have a place in Florida, I believe, if I'm correct. But this company, it is called Coffee Inn, which is coffee and then in as an INN, but they recently changed it to Caffeine Roasters. And so this company is really interesting because they have a ubiquitous sort of orange cups that people are walking around all over the Baltics. You can see in the cities with these almost like Starbucks cups. The idea, though, however, is I've talked to one of the founders of Caffeine Roasters. His challenge was to take a European culture of sitting with the porcelain cup or sitting down for coffee and having it to go. Mm-hmm. So the idea of grabbing a coffee, an Americano, or what they call black coffee to go was new for them. So you have like a new generation of people walking around with coffee too, pretty much probably like what the United States was, I would imagine, with these cups in the early 90s or late 80s, or like with Starbucks cups. And
it's kind of funny because we got the opposite going on now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cafes pop up, and their whole thing is about slowing down, sitting down. You can't get your coffee to go here.
Yeah.
Or I mean, I'm not sure there are places that actually draw a hard line on that, but they encourage people to take a mug and sit and enjoy it, or have a little espresso. Just sit down for 5 minutes out of your day.
Yeah, it's really interesting how like that there it's a young country or young area. You have a lot of people working hard. You got them, like a lot of young folks are going to school, and they just are really driving this younger generation. I guess the millennials of that region are really driving this change. Of course, you can find some amazing cafes that are beautiful and like 500, 600-year-old buildings with light tan bricks and beautiful lighting. You kind of almost want to stay at these places, but at the same time, people are going and grabbing cups to go and are very much, I would say, on their iPhones or their phones and chatting, and it's a very, what you would see in any city here in the United States.
Is espresso-based coffee commonly consumed there, or is it more brewed?
Interesting. Yes. Espresso-based, so they went from what I understand, instant coffee to just getting a kettle, and putting some hot water in to espresso machines. But there is also a really quickly growing kind of slow brew, manual brewing culture. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of...
it's such an addictive way to make coffee.
Yeah.
And that's another subject on its own. Sorry.
No. But it's easy. They're in the cafes. You can see they're really proud of their competition with AeroPress in AeroPress competitions, or using they have a Harios spread out, or they have the Chemexes out there. Hurricane has one of the only clovers in the region. From what I remember, it was like the only clover in Eastern Europe, but I might be wrong on that. But I so there is a movement to have kind of replicate the cafe experience at home, and so people do buy Chemexes, although it's very expensive there. And
the clover, by the way, is originally. I mean, it was originally its own company. It's owned by Starbucks now. Starbucks bought them out.
Yeah.
If you've ever been to a Starbucks that has a clover, it seems like such an over-engineered way to make coffee, but it's always a really good cup of coffee. But essentially, it's a giant machine and this kind of sort of vacuum sort of chamber, but it's got a cylinder filter that rises up and down. And as I recall, it starts off at the bottom, and they add the coffee, and then they add the hot water, and and they add a bit more, and they stir it up, and then when it's done brewing, the filter lifts up, and it's sealed on the side, so it creates a suction, and it pulls the coffee through the filter, leaving all of the sort of oils that you don't want kind of on top.
Yeah.
Which makes a really smooth and clean cup. So it's makes a delicious cup, but it's like not for $10,000, $20,000, whatever those machines are.
Yeah, I think he did pay quite a bit for that Clover back then, and so it is a good cup of coffee. And I think when I do see a Clover at a Starbucks, I tend to go there because I can kind of
If I'm gonna get a drink at Starbucks and they have a Clover, then I'm gonna get a Clover because the one thing from my memory, it's been a while since I've had one.
Yeah.
But it does seem to take some of the harshness out of
it's
their
actually
charred
good
roasts, which is maybe why they got it.
They went after that company and took over, and they made sure they had.
But it's not even something that do they have one in the reserve?
They do. They have. Okay. They have. I think they have a few, and then there's one. A couple other in Green Lake here in the Seattle area.
Anyways, that's Starbucks. back to the Baltics.
Yeah. So I've been going to Huracán for a few years now and seen that they're growing. I think they have 9 cafes in the area, and they the owner is a really good guy who's part of the I think the Cup of Excellence and doing a lot of European tasting, and he's really kind of driving quality in the area, and he's really dedicated to giving the best cup of coffee for those consumers, which is great because he's pulling, he's as that young population who are learning about coffee. Now, being by young, you can be 70 years old, and still learning about a good cup of coffee.
Right.
But he is driving in my opinion, is one of the big key drivers and inspiration for a lot of the other small roasters. And so you're starting to see smaller roasters, smaller cafes, and growing. So it's these cafes are great because in this area, in these Baltics that have been kind of basically over the last 50, 60 years pummeled by the Soviet Union, you have these neighborhoods that are really kind of still trying to emerge out of this era. You have these great oases of cafes that offer great coffee, great ambiance, and a really welcoming atmosphere that anyone in let's say in this area would be very familiar with. Again, there's for Lithuania, there's a growing kind of, I guess, population of young people that are really interested in the roasting process and coffee, and they're really driving, these consumers are driving these new cafes. Also for Latvia as well.
So you're gonna write about these folks for the magazine, right?
I am, and they have a great story.
May already be published by the time you watch this.
Yeah.
We don't know yet.
Vitas, the owner, it has a great story of how he started, and I hope to capture that along with the podcast. So if you're interested in seeing how coffee, it's really going into these different countries and seeing how coffee is emerging there and exploding all over the place, and people are getting into coffee art and these really out of the way remote places, and it's really exciting to see and how easily it is to connect with people with coffee, and so that's pretty exciting.
So you want to tell us about the 2 coffees you brought?
I do. So this is Huracán. So this is Sumatra from Indonesia, and it's a great tasting coffee. Hopefully, came back a couple of weeks ago, so I'm hoping that the roast is still fine. Yeah, I did have a chance to go to Latvia as well. Had some great opportunity to taste some really good coffees there. One in particular I spoke to, roaster and cafe, was a roaster called Rocket Bean Roastery, and as you can see here, they have an amazing aggressive marketing objective, which is to really kind of buck the system, and not just you're not just getting coffee, you're getting sort of a brand and an image behind that.
Quite in your face with that.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, it is. Yeah. So this I brought this especially for you here.
Oh, thank you.
This magic pussy, and I'm still blushing while I'm saying that, but it was great. They have a great space. Oh yeah. They have a great space in near Old Town in Riga, and Riga is a very big port city in the Baltics, and it's a very thriving city. It has actually more touristy than Vilnius, I believe, but because of its port and it's just
It is a quick side question. Is Tim Wendelbo popular in that area at all?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like
Okay.
like there's the roasters there. They
I
there's
was just the reason. Well, because it's kind of in a similar area, and he's driving a lot of the same kind of
is that right? Yeah. Okay.
just culture of coffee.
Yeah.
Of really good specialty coffee and consuming it well. But they have the harvest date on the bag here, which is pretty cool. I don't see that a lot.
Yeah.
But Tim Wendelbo does that.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Rough harvest date. So the green coffee was harvested December 2015 to January 2016.
Yeah.
Which is quite a while ago, considering when this was roasted. But I don't know how they store their beans.
Yeah, I believe, from what I understand, this company goes through a broker, and so it was great. It was a great experience. They offer a great space. They're doing really well, and it's really great to see these beautiful places really kind of enliven the neighborhood. And so, it's really exciting to visit and.
Should we dive in?
Yes, we should.
Which one do you think we should do first?
Well, let's start with.
Actually, let's do because this is a Sumatra.
Okay.
So this is going to be a bit heavier and thicker, I assume.
Yeah.
So maybe we start off with the lighter Ethiopia, just so that that's not going to overwhelm our taste buds at all.
Okay.
That's my instinct on that. So maybe how about let's pop them open, have a smell, and then we'll brew and come back.
Okay, sounds good. I'll open. You can open that one. I'll open this one. All right. Love these packaging here, by the way.
So fancy.
Yeah. Let's see.
I mean, that smells like a really good Ethiopia. Looks like a nice roast too.
It smells great too.
Oh.
This is. You can wake up with that smell and your days.
That's like half the joy
Wow.
of coffee.
That's like
Ooh.
That's just like fresh blueberries.
What am I?
Yeah, it smells good.
This is like
I don't know.
fresh baked
I know
nutty
this is
bread or something like that. Like in a really good way. Like a lot of nuts and nuttiness on this.
Yeah, they're both done very well, and I tell you, I know this is a family show here, but I really love smelling this stuff. And
that is making the cut, folks.
Yeah, barely.
Just making the cut. Okay, we're gonna brew the coffee, and then we'll be right back. All right, we're back. So brewed up the Ethiopia Sidama on the Kalita wave, as I usually do, and I usually like to try to give. I like to try to give it. Well, hold on a second. I'm not done with this.
I tell you, it's great.
It smells quite a lot of lots of berries to me.
It smells great.
Yeah. Oftentimes, when it's just brewed, like it's so hot, it's hard to smell stuff.
Yeah.
But is this a natural process? Yeah, it's a natural process.
Yeah.
So the natural process bring out a lot of fruit sugar.
Yeah. Again, check them out. They're called. They're at they're Rocket Bean Roastery, and they're in Riga. And if you're interested in trying, it's great because all of these different roasteries have their own profiles, but it's really nice to see what they can do with their beans. And I know these guys are really dedicated, and so is Vitas over at Hurricane. But so it smells great though.
Mm-hmm. Might be a little warm still, but
Yeah.
so this is a fairly light roasted coffee, which means it's going to be more necessary to let it cool before tasting, but I'll give it a try anyways.
I don't want to put you on a spot here. What do you think?
It's cool a little bit. Can't pick off. There's a little bit of the fruitiness right up front.
Yeah.
It's got some good like rich, maybe chocolatiness to
Yeah,
it.
it's like chocolatey blueberry. It's really nice. It's smooth. It's not bitter.
It's
I love
interesting. I wouldn't peg it as. So this is roasted almost 2 months ago now. So I wouldn't peg it as having been roasted 2 months ago. But it also doesn't really line up with their tasting notes.
Yeah.
So
It took me a long time to get back from Riga. Just got a train. But I wanted to put you on the spot here a little bit. Like, is what, in your opinion, when you have a lighter roasted coffee, what would be a really good one or two recommendations for brewing it at home? Would you
the richness and the sweetness of this. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. It was just how would you brew this at home? We did this kind of a pour over style.
Right. So the Kalita wave, which many of you are familiar with my usage of the Kalita wave. It's to me, it's a very easy to make a good pour over kind of brewer. You do need a gooseneck kettle, really, to do this because it just requires some slower pouring than you can from a regular thing. Yeah. But to answer your question, a light roasted coffee, I for a lighter roasted, I'll lean more towards some kind of filtered, like paper filtered pour over or drip style. Yeah. You could do some kind of immersion. I mean, this has a lot of rich sweetness to it, so I could see doing this in a French press as well. Yeah. But I personally, I think it really just comes down to personal taste. Yeah. And preference. I really very much prefer coffee that's been filtered by paper versus coffee that hasn't. It just drinks better to me. It sits better. Like there's oils in coffee that the paper catches, which I think do not agree with me terribly well. So I'll still like a French press here and there, but it's not my main preference.
Yeah. I think I know you noted that you didn't grind the grounds so finely, but they're
this is a pretty, like, I don't think it's going to show up on the video, but it's a medium coarse grind that I use for the Kalita. About the same as what I would use for a Chemex, to be honest. I'm not. I use this one so the Kalita wave so consistently and frequently that I've messed around enough with grind size to know that I can tell a distinct difference between this and like a couple notches finer. Yeah. But I couldn't tell you what it is. Only that I like this better.
No, and it's great, and it tastes good, and this can go with a chocolate cake or alone, and this is excellent. And it's great because it's a lighter roast. From what I understand, lighter roast actually holds its flavor a little more, like I think more, I should say, like a darker roast, maybe like the coffee beans, the flavor kind of drops off faster. Is that your understanding as well?
You mean in terms of
just
like
the
how
roast
long
itself?
It's been since it was roasted?
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't done any comparisons on that. You could very well be right. When you roast, especially a dark roast that's gone to second crack. Has a lot more volatility. I imagine has a lot more volatility to it. I'm not educated enough on the science of roasting coffee to speak to that clearly.
Yeah, no, I just think from what I understand, if it's kind of a lighter roast, it maybe tends to last just a little bit longer because
I would say that's probably more due to the quality of the sourced coffee, to be honest, and how it's stored. Yeah. So this has been in this like solid paper bag. It's completely sealed, and it's been that way since it was roasted. Yeah. So that's gonna keep very well. Yeah. The only way this would keep better is if it was frozen. Now, having gone through most of my cup here, I'm still mostly just tasting chocolatiness. Not too much fruit. Certainly not as much as like we smelled in the bag.
Yeah, the fruit kind of dropped off, and
is the experience. This is the exact experience that I have with fruity Ethiopian coffees that have been a while since they've been roasted.
Interesting.
Like I have another one. I still have some Aricha left over from Anchorhead. Yeah. I had them in the Coffee Lovers box in July, and I still have a little bit left in a. So I have a little bit left in a bag here. Yeah. And it still smells like blueberries. It still tastes really good, but it doesn't taste like it did originally. It doesn't taste like the taste was extreme. Oh, blueberry cupcakes was right because it tasted like blueberry cupcakes right out of an oven. And that's like very strongly blueberries. That like blueberry strength is mostly gone, but it's still like sweet and delicious. This is still sweet. It's still like it's got like this chocolatiness to it, maybe some fruit sugar, but I'm not picking up blueberry fruit.
So for those of you who for those of your viewers right now, what would be similar in the coffee? Sure, in the coffee lovers box. So would that Anchorhead?
Yeah,
box
so
be similar?
the Ethiopia Aricha from Anchorhead, which I had in the July Coffee Lovers box,
Yeah.
you can buy that coffee individually on the shop. Is a naturally
That's great.
processed Ethiopian coffee. Different region, I believe.
Yeah, it's really good though.
Yeah, this is Yirgacheffe, and that's Sidama.
Yeah.
But naturally processed Ethiopian, so different specific taste, but similar experience.
Yeah, it's great. And so if you have that, I think it's probably a good comparison to this cup as well. Yeah, it's excellent. And
So tasting notes, or do you want to talk about what you're tasting?
well, I wanted to talk a little bit about. It's really interesting because you look at the name. Get back to the name, and it's a great for those people most likely will remember something like this, and I think it's really interesting to when you have so many different types of coffees from different regions and different origins. It's almost helpful to have sort of a name that you can remember. Going, oh yeah, I like that. That's these guys, Rocket Bean, have a beautiful roastery, beautiful space. They offer amazing food, which is great to see cafes now going more than maybe just a donut or so. They offer the full spread, and it's really good to see that in this region.
Here's a cool thing to me. So if you're used to drinking this kind of coffee, this single origin, you're familiar with processing, with how it's roasted, that sort of thing. You're getting coffee from Coffee Lovers Box, whatever. Say you go on a trip to the Baltics.
Yeah.
You can go to a place like this, not speak a lick of the language, and get along just like that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. In fact,
I love that while traveling.
Yeah.
Just you can have the hardest time trying to have a conversation, but as soon as you bring it around to coffee, it's suddenly everyone's like, oh, yeah.
Exactly. And I've noticed that in my travels, and I travel kind of off the beaten path, if you will, in Eastern Europe, and you walk into a cafe, and all of a sudden you see a Chemex or just a Larmazzocco espresso machine, and you can start talking about origin, and they're very passionate about it, and they want to do it right. They're really interested. I think they're looking inward too, but I think they're also getting a lot of inspiration from what they see in the United States and in Canada, and probably in parts of Australia, but more so the United States. They see a lot of inspiration of what you can do with coffee, and especially in this area in Seattle.
And coffee around the world brings along with it a certain level of passion. For most places where farmers grow coffee, it's not the most profitable thing that they do. And a lot of the farmers will go out of their way taking the more difficult routes just to make better coffee because the pride in making really good coffee is such a worldwide thing. So shall we go on to
Absolutely.
Hurricane?
Let's do
All
this.
right, cool.
Yeah.
So we're going to brew the Hurricane up on the Cleta Wave, and then we'll be back with that one.
Excited. All right.
All right, we're back. And we just brewed the Hurricane's Sumatra on the Cleta Wave. This is, I'm assuming this is a natural processed Sumatra. It's got a very strong, earthy, this is kind of a sweet grass sort of smell, sweet.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Sweet hay.
Yeah.
Almost, which is
Very, yeah. It has that sweet kind of organic.
And while I was brewing it, I was getting popcorn on this. So this is admittedly in my range, leaning away from my range of interest in tasting coffee. I don't usually take to earthy coffees, but I do enjoy exploring them from time to time.
Yeah.
So this is gonna be a fun one.
Yeah, I've been visiting Hurricane for about 3 years now, several times each during my each trip to the Baltics, and their quality is great, and they have a really all their coffees seem to have their own unique taste and profiles that are just really enjoyable, and so it's good to finally be here to talk to you talk to you
Yeah.
about them. And
Can I ask you, why are they called Hurricane?
well, interestingly, there is a trend in the Baltics from older companies like Hurricane to younger companies who want to broaden their appeal. So, for example, when Hurricane started out, it was called Svietsa Kava, which it's a very local, brand, very local kind of, I guess, well, basically company.
And straightforward, fresh coffee.
Yeah, fresh coffee.
Yeah.
So what they want to do is what they did. They decided to rebrand as a name where everyone could at least pronounce and spell and kind of have an affinity towards. Ironically, this is the summer of hurricanes. We're like bearing down with Hurricane Irma, and it had Harvey. So it's really interesting.
Jose is coming up behind.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's so the name is recognizable, and they like Rocket Bean, they didn't want to have like a Latvian name, for example, that was maybe difficult to spell or difficult to pronounce, and so they wanted a branding effort. They redid their brand to.
I mean, I love this. I mean,
Yeah.
just it's such an artful looking bag. I also like the logo.
Yeah, the logo's great. And so there's a movement towards like English speaking, partly for they wanted to grow not only in Lithuania or in Latvia, but they want to expand throughout the Baltics. So Lithuanian, Latvian, and Estonian are all, they might be, between what we would consider Seattle and like maybe Northern California, the distance between them. I mean, if you incorporate all of them, you can probably fit all of them between Seattle and certainly San Francisco. But they had three very different, distinct languages and dialects, and so if they wanted to kind of spread out to the next, country over, they, didn't want to necessarily have like Lithuanian, or you don't necessarily want to have a Latvian name or an Estonian name. So I think it,
That would be strange
Yeah.
if people in Portland spoke a different language. They kind of already do.
Yeah, you
But
kind of
anyways.
do it. Yeah. But yeah, so that's basically the reason behind the switching over, and I think we're beyond the point of people now recognize that they can get fresh coffee. So let's smell this here.
Good sweetness to it. For a call from the grounds. This is reasonably light roasted.
Yeah, it's good. Now it's very different from the.
Oh yes, this is a pretty light roast. But yes, quite different from the Ethiopian coffee. There's a bit of woodiness in this, I think.
There's like some woodiness and
A bit of nuttiness, woodiness, nuttiness. It's smooth though. It's got an interesting sweetness to it.
Yeah.
Actually, I like this one. I think so. Sumatran coffee often used in blends, especially espresso blends, traditionally, because they usually have. I think. I mean, I've certainly seen it in a lot of espresso blends. Kind of how Brazil provides a really good base. Sumatra provides a really good body and sort of punch, so to speak.
So is this, in your experience, like Sumatra kind of sort of tastes like this?
Sumatran coffees are often earthy and woody. Indonesian coffees in general, especially when they're naturally processed. That's why I asked about that.
Yeah.
There have been a couple washed Sumatrans that have shown up. Specifically, Anchorhead had one that was, I don't speak out of turn. I want to say it's fully washed, but it might have been semi-washed. But it didn't taste at all like a Sumatran. It wasn't earthy. I mean, it might have had a little bit of wood on the back, but it was primarily like cherry and juicy, which you never get from an Indonesian.
Kind of it has a Sumatra too, right? I believe they
Sumatra in the Ship Canal.
Yeah, that's right.
And the Ship Canal is their darker roast, so the Sumatra adds. I mean, it's a certain layer of taste, like earthy, woody. Like I'm getting a lot of like woody and like sweet hay actually is coming out now.
Actually, I'm trying to think what I would like this with. I think I would like this with a big chocolate piece of cake, something that's really sweet to kind of, and this would kind of counteract it, kind of reduce the sweetness. And
yeah, Sumatrans I think are often odd by themselves, which maybe that's the impression people get from Ethiopian single origins as well. I like kind of like completely different ranges of the spectrum. As the Ethiopian, you're getting a coffee that's like super fruity. And if you never had that before, it's a really weird experience.
Yeah.
And here you're getting a coffee that's like really woody, maybe a little grassy. Like I said, sweet hay comes to my mind.
Yeah. I think you're right on that.
Which is a weird thing to say because I can't say that I've ever eaten hay. Certainly never had hay dusted in sugar.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, but this is
corn. Maybe what I'm thinking is like corn.
Oh, that's
like
really
a sweet
interesting.
corn.
Yeah, kind of like a sweet corn. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, like a sweet corn, but my nose picks up hay.
Yeah, it's very very tasty, and it's again, I can picture. Where's the cake? I thought you were gonna bring the cake today. I
can't. I
Can't
ate
bake.
it. I ate it all. I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is great, and they're very different. Obviously, different origins, and but now
This one I think has also been a month or so since, a little over a month since roasted. This was roasted on the 20th of July. That one was roasted on the 8th.
yeah,
So they both are like, we often in the specialty coffee, artisan coffee circles talk about the sort of golden time of coffee, which is from about a week to 2 or 3 weeks after roasting. It's like the perfect time when everything is like, it's off gassed enough that it's ready to drink. It's at its prime.
That's right.
It's its most vibrant, and then after that it starts to drop off.
Yeah.
And to me, really good coffee still tastes good after that time.
Yeah.
Like you can still take one of those coffees, 3-4 months later. I actually just did I've got a video going up, which may already be up by the time this is out. Where I was testing out a storage container and like an airtight.
I gotta get one of those.
The Airscape. I put one of Conduit's coffees in there. So I got that at SCA. I put one of Conduit's coffees in there, and then life got busy and I forgot about it for 4.5 months. It's still like, it was obviously changed, but good coffee still tastes pretty good after a time. And both of these are, I'd say at the very least, well sourced. They look to be and taste well roasted. So,
yeah. If you're ever in the Baltics, ever in Lithuania or in Latvia, drop by Hurricane, drop by Rocket Bean. They'll treat you well. They're very welcoming, warm people, and I think that's the nature of just coffee in general. Like coffee just brings people together. Well, I know, for example, Vitas is he goes down to, he's going down to Latin America, Central America. South America, and really trying to create those connections with people, and so and that extends back to you walk down and you see his cafe and store, and you wouldn't feel like there was a connection to, let's say, Bolivia or Colombia or Guatemala, but there is, and it's really interesting how this small beverage can bring so many people together. So that's really cool, which is one of the reasons I like coffee.
Before we tap out, I just wanted to poke around on the bag really quick.
Yeah.
So I noticed on this one it said espresso. This one has a little filter icon, which I'm assuming. I mean, I don't speak.
Yeah. So
the language is present.
Fresh. Oh, scrudinita. I have no idea what that is. I know a few Lithuanian words, but
judging by the filter symbol, I'm assuming it's saying that this is made for filter coffee, but that could be a giant assumption. Yeah. Do you know what there's a diagram on the back here? I don't know. Do you know what any of that means?
Let's see. That means medium caramel, scolades. I believe chocolades. Oh, I should know. Chocolatey, maybe. No. For those of you who speak Lithuanian,
is this a taste diagram?
It looks like sort of a mini taste map on the back there.
So medium is like this pink, and then the chocolatey is kind of chocolatey looking in color. I don't know what I mean. Just trying to. Maybe that's earthy.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, this is a kind of a taste diagram, and I wish I knew more Lithuanian. I do. Every time I go, I pick up. Maybe the wrong words, but I do know the name for aulus, a beer, which is aulus, which is probably my second favorite beverage there in the Lithuania.
This is fun trying to decipher a bag that has no English on it.
Yeah.
Because they've got their main bag design and this sticker down here for the specific coffee, And then they've got that chocolate color here for the Sumatra, which is Skolados anywhere on here? No. Okay. Anyways, interesting bags.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you, Eddie,
Yeah.
for bringing the coffee and the stories.
Sure. Yeah. We'll check out the article on Coffee Lovers Magazine.
Magazine.
Yeah.
And I'll link below the video for that. And you're going to have a podcast
I'll have,
as well.
Exactly. Interviewing both of these owners and telling a little bit about their story. And yeah, it's exciting. So, thank you.
Sweet.
Yeah. Cool.
Thanks so much. And thank you all for watching. Please, if you're watching this on YouTube, like the video, subscribe, leave your comments below. Let us know what you think. If you have any questions for Eddie, comment below, and we'll let you know.
Yeah.
Have a great week.
Yeah. I was gonna say you too, but yeah, you too.
That's like when someone's delivering pizza.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Enjoy your pizza." You
like,
too.
Yeah, you too. I'm like that guy who does that all the time. Yeah, you too. As I'm walking away with.
That's
pizza.
my example because I did that once. And it will forever be burned in my memory. All right.
Well, thanks. Thanks for listening. Cheers.